All right, in the last video I was talking about faith. I looked at the story of Noah. Okay, and Noah received a warning, and he invested his entire life in building that ark. Okay, and his whole reality was shaped by what God spoke to him. And I want to push into that a little bit more because there's tremendous examples in Hebrews chapter 11 of how people responded to what God said in faith. And one of them, of course, which is kind of highlighted in scriptures is the story of Abram. God told Abram to leave his family and leave his homeland, so everything familiar to him, and to go out into a land that he had no idea where it was and what it entailed, and to trust God that God was going to give him that land as an inheritance, and to live in that land trusting that God was going to give him a descendant in order to give that inheritance to. Only problem was that Sarah was barren and they were growing older and older in age, and it looked like it was impossible for it to happen. But Abraham now, was seeing everything in the light of what God spoke to him. So he left everything. He went to the land that God showed him. He walked through that land and he kept worshiping God because in his heart, he was envisioning this land as being given to him. And he walked through that land and God kept challenging him in different ways to keep believing in spite of the impossibility. He even made the challenges more difficult, constantly encouraging him that the promises were true, making covenant with him so he knew that God would not turn back on his word, but calling Abram, who now is Abraham, the father of many nations, to keep seeing his reality, his future, his destiny for him and for his descendants through the lens of what God spoke to him. And so the challenge that I have for you is that we're teaching about Christ. And what we're called to do is hear what God has spoken to us in Christ. What has Christ accomplished for us? Who we are in Christ? What does it mean that Christ lives in us? What does it mean that Christ is now risen from the dead and he's ascended into heaven? What is the hope that God has set before us in Christ? And now see the entire reality of our lives through that lens and invest our lives completely in what it is that God has said.